Hi, welcome to Beyond the Map, a podcast about travel, self-discovery, and the beauty found between destinations. I'm Francesca Page, and each week we'll explore the meaningful moments, mindful rituals, and hidden details that make every journey a little more human. Welcome back to Beyond the Map, the podcast where travel meets self-discovery. I'm Francesca Page, and each week we explore the journeys that shape who we are, both the places we visit and the experiences that transform us along the way. Today's guest is Jeanee Crane-Mauzy, former World Cup freestyle skier, advocate, and co-founder of the MoCrazy Strong Foundation. And what began as a life centered around competition and international travel evolved into something far greater, a mission to help others navigate resilience, recovery, and life's unexpected detours. In this conversation, we'll talk about how sports opened doors to the world, the cultures and experiences that expanded her perspective, and how devastating family tragedy ultimately led to a powerful movement focused on brain injury awareness, community, and hope. So whether you're planning your next adventure or navigating a challenge of your own, this episode is a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful journeys are the ones we never expected to take. Here's my conversation with Jeanee. Enjoy. Jeanee, welcome to Beyond the Map. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I guess when people hear professional skier, they picture competition and medals, right? But your journey has evolved into something much bigger. How would you like to introduce yourself today?
Sure. So I'm Jeanee Crane-Mauzy. I have been a competitive half-pipe skier on the World Cup tour, also climate activist, caregiver, started the nonprofit MoCrazy Strong Brain Injury Foundation, and I do a lot of advocacy for that, as well as my grandmother was actually a professional skier in the 40s. And so it's, been in my DNA to be a skier. If you could walk, you can ski in my family. And I did other sports as well growing up, and I'm still active. And I think that, sports teaches you so much about the world that other avenues don't. Well, I think it's really important that all kids are exposed to sports, and especially girls.
Especially like extreme sports. And I know that when we first met, we had that in common, right? Because I grew up surfing and snowboarding. And funnily enough, I had a guest on last week who was talking about, what shapes the way you travel. And we talked a lot about how, my initial love of travel came from travel to do what you love. I felt from a very young age, very similar to you, that I wanted that, I needed that. Like I was never going to walk through life. I needed to run through it. Speaking of which, as a World Cup athlete, you have traveled extensively. Was there a destination or experience that fundamentally, I guess, changed how you see the world?
It's a great question. There's been so many trips, both for my sport and outside of it. I'd say one that really changed for me was when I was 15. I qualified to be the sole representative for the U.S. for the first ever Youth Olympic Games in Innsbruck, Austria in 2012. And I was there for, I think, about 3 weeks, and they have a whole athlete village and everything. And that was something that really kind of opened my mind and my experiences on meeting a bunch of different athletes from all around the world.
I said last week on the podcast, the beauty of having a reason to go travel and a reason to meet other people. And travel is such a wonderful way, at least I think, of creating some sort of bond between people of different cultures, understanding there's so much diversity in the world right now that it's nice when I hear that, kids are going places to learn different languages, to do things that they love, to look outside of the box a little bit,
And sports, a lot of sports add a whole nother dimension to travel, because I was traveling around Europe with, 100 plus pounds of luggage. And so, it's funny, when I met my fiance and we started traveling together, he didn't understand when we were going on sports trips that I had a giant ski bag, and that really made hopping on public transit and walking around cities a lot different. Like, you had to plan travel around the luggage and the gear. And there are sports that have even more gear than halfpipe skiing has. And it adds that level that isn't there if you aren't in the sport.
Right. Yeah, you have to be much more prepared. I remember at some point, and I haven't traveled with surfboard in a very long time, but there was a point where the airlines were like banning surfboards on planes, and now to this day I actually don't see a lot of people even going to surf destinations. They tend to just rent the boards there because it's too much to carry, and they get broken, and it was a whole thing. And hence I haven't traveled with a surfboard in a very long time. Also haven't surfed in a minute. That's that.
Not a lot of surfing in Long Island Sound.
No, there's not. It's a sound. Yeah, not an ocean. How, I mean, you've kind of touched upon this. How has travel, do you feel, helped shape your values beyond sport? I mean, we've kind of just discussed that, but anything else you have to say to that? Like, how has it shaped your values of how you view the world, how you view your sport?
I think, for one thing, it taught me the value that, like, I can figure it out, because there have been times where, I went to the wrong train station, my phone service didn't work, I'm somewhere in Europe by myself, and I had to get to that destination, and so I just had to figure it out, I didn't have the luxury of panicking or relying on somebody else, and I think that taught me, how to stay more calm under pressure, and be like, I can figure it out, like, what's the solution, not just freaking out about the problem.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially now, kids are much more bubbled. When I was growing up, before a lot of technology, I mean, I was just coming to having a cell phone. You would go away and I might not talk to my parents unless I had like coins to put in a phone thing to speak to them. But I do think that figuring it out on your own, and that is an important lesson, I think. And again, traveling for these sports, you do have to kind of figure, whether it's a language barrier or carrying luggage or whatever it is, it makes you grow up very quickly.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about this if you're comfortable discussing it. Your family's life changed dramatically after your sister Jamie's accident. How did that experience redefine what strength means to you?
Yeah, so my sister Jamie had a near-fatal brain injury in 2015 from a skiing accident, which I was there for, so I was hands-on, seeing her convulsing on the snow, spewing blood, and there throughout all of her recovery process. And I was 18, turning 19 at the time, so when you talk about, growing up fast, that was something that definitely made me grow up fast, because it changed the dynamic of her being the big sister to me, and me being the caregiver. And, that kind of set the stage for my family, not only to start our foundation and to work strongly in the brain injury community and be advocates of that, but also just within our personal family, of me ending up being the caregiver.
Yeah.
I've since been the caregiver for my grandfather, for my father. I'm the person that people call, my sister booked the wrong plane ticket and I fixed it for her. My other sister and mom are in Africa right now, and after climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, they wanted a few days to rest before traveling all the way back to the US. So last night I was able to change their flights for them, because I'm the one, not only with travel, but just with life, who has figured out how to be that caregiver, and that stems from being the caregiver of my sister when I was 18.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is about MoCrazy Strong. Tell us a little bit about that. And also, there's a phrase you use, alternative peaks, as your philosophy. What does that mean to you? And tell us a little bit about MoCrazy Strong.
Yeah, so MoCrazy Strong Brain Injury Foundation was built from our experience with my sister's accident. Not only did she have tremendous treatment and a lot of excess care and luck because of her level of being an athlete. And we felt that that should be the standard, that we started to notice how different care was for different people in different regions, different financial backgrounds, different knowledge. Our mom had studied early childhood brain development. My oldest sister was a doctor. So we had just a lot of resources and knowledge to make her recovery really good. And then also with the alternative peaks, there's been a big rhetoric of, so with people who've had severe brain injury, that afterwards their life is just terrible and everything is a struggle and it's really hard. And that wasn't our story. That hasn't been our story. And we wanted to, through our foundation and through people we work with, really share that, you know, life's possible after brain injury. You may have different abilities, you may have different interests, but you can still have fulfilling, interesting lives. And so my sister didn't return to being a competitive skier, but she is a public speaker who travels around the world. She has a podcast to interview brain injury survivors. She, you know, has just finished climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's going to be part of our second documentary. We have one on Amazon Prime right now. So it is like the alternative peak. It's what life was isn't exactly, but, you know, she's kind of in a similar spot because when you're a professional athlete, eventually you retire anyways.
Yeah.
So, you know, being able to create this life that is really meaningful and interesting. And that's, you know, a philosophy that not only people who've had brain injury or trauma, but most people go through different stages of lives and changes.
Yeah.
And so what's the alternative peak? Something that wasn't maybe your first thought of destination, but is just as fulfilling and rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good philosophy just in general for anyone going through life, because you can get thrown a sideball, side curve, whatever, and you don't, a curveball, you don't know. And I completely understand that. I think it's incredible and a wonderful miracle. You know, your sister is alive and thriving and climbing mountains, literally. So you have transitioned from competitor, as you've mentioned, to a caregiver, advocate, non-profit leader. What have you learned about, not to get deep here, but the term resilience? Because it seems like you have created an avenue in so many ways that is promoting resilience.
That's a good question.
It's okay. Take your time to answer.
Well, I was going to say one thing, you know, having been a caregiver alongside being an athlete for most of my career, definitely added like a deep layer that was very different from a lot of my competitors, where even if they were doing school or something else, their main focus could be on themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, from being a caregiver of my sister, I was also a foster parent.
You know, everyone travels in a different way, right? For different reasons. But there's something about transcendent, I want to say, about when you travel that kind of makes you feel like you can stop and be in the moment. And that's a lesson that's, I think, really important if you can take that away. And one of the things about traveling to do something like a sport, right? Whether you're biking or hiking or skiing or whatever, your most favorite place you've ever skied?
Probably Whistler Blackcomb, which is actually where my sister's accident was. But we went back many years after. We went like 5 years in a row.
She's still skiing, right? She's just not competitive.
Yes,
skiing.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful mountain. We know a lot of people there. But as a kid, we used to ski in Chile every summer, and that was really cool.
I heard that's really good.
Yeah, I would love to go back. That's on my list in the next few years, is go back and ski there as an adult. And then,
what about Japan? Have you been to Japan?
I have not.
I've heard it's phenomenal.
I know, but my competitions haven't taken me there yet. So now that I'm retired from that, maybe I can plan a ski trip too. That's one of the things I'm actually kind of excited about, is instead of kind of going back to these same places where the competitions are every year. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are not as much. Now I can start planning ski trips to where I really want to go, like Japan or Chile.
Now, you said you have a documentary currently out, and that's on Amazon?
Yes.
What's it called?
It's called #MoCrazy Strong.
Okay.
It's about my sister's accident and the origin story of her foundation. It features all of us in her family. I'm one of the producers of it.
Amazing. This one I always ask everyone. What does going beyond the map mean to you?
I think it means really when you travel, being able to get into the culture and into the local. I share citizenship with an island nation called Vanuatu in the South Pacific that is a small developing nation that's just absolutely beautiful. It's kind of in between Fiji and Australia. And when I've gone quite a few times, one of the things I did was volunteer with Vets Beyond Borders to help spay, neuter, and treat dogs and cats there. And I think doing things like that, and I was visiting a friend in Denmark, and her property had a bunch of apples, and from her apple trees, and we collected them all and brought them to like a food bank. And just seeing like in what ways you can connect. We went on safari in Africa, and in the middle of the day, you can either hang out at the resort or do local activities. And we did an activity every day, and our guide was surprised. He said many people like to hang out at the resort because you have to wake up very early, and then they're tired and they want to hang out. And we're like, no, we want to do the culture. And so we made textiles, we made jewelry, and we went to a traditional village where they cooked for us and had a dancing festival. And that was really interesting. And, both my parents were basically crying on the way back. It was such a beautiful experience. And people don't have any electricity there or running water. They have wells in each village to have their fresh water. They cook on fire. It's very different, but it was like this beautiful shared experience. There was this beautiful baby that they handed to my mom when she was carrying around, and she just loves kids. And it's like, that love for kids and babies, or whatever it is that you really love, transcends all these different cultures. And so I think traveling beyond the map is trying to go beyond what is just like the number one pin of wherever you are, but what can you really find in those areas?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and I do feel that less about ticking off like the bucket list of things, and also for me, it's a lot more about the spontaneity, right, of meeting different people and kind of understanding their world.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Closing question now. If someone listening feels like life has taken them off the path that they planned, which we discussed, what's one piece of advice you'd give them about finding their next mountain to climb?
I think trying to, understand that there's many paths. So just because the one path isn't working out doesn't mean you won't find another one that you may like even more. And also being okay with being in the moment. We may need to, spend more time focusing on ourselves. Maybe we do need to go on a trip somewhere or let ourselves like reset. And I think feeling that and feeling the emotions really helps to be able to then move on and find other stuff, not to bottle it up and pretend that it's not happening or it's not different, And I think that understanding that when life changes, there is usually grief with it, even if you feel like there shouldn't be, because it's not like a death per se, but there's a grief of what you thought life may be, and now it's different, and that's okay, and to really just feel that. And if you need, support outside of that through family, friends, professional help, seek it, because the more you can heal, the more you can go on and find that other path or alternative peak.
Oh, very wise words. Very wise woman. Jeanee, thank you so much for coming on Beyond the Map. Please come back.
Thank you. I would love to. Yes.
Thank you, Jeanee. Jeanee's story is a powerful reminder that strength isn't always found at the top of a podium. Sometimes it's found in the moments that test us the most, and in the courage to create purpose from pain. I loved hearing how travel, sport, and community have all played a role in expanding her perspective and helping her turn adversity into advocacy. Her journey truly embodies what Beyond the Map is all about. Discovering who we become when life takes us somewhere we never planned to go. To learn more about Jeanee's work and the MoCrazy Strong Foundation, visit MoCrazyStrong.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd be grateful if you would subscribe, leave a review, and share this conversation with someone who could use a little inspiration. Until next time, remember the greatest journeys aren't always measured in miles, but in the ways they change us along the way. I'm Francesca Page, and this is Beyond the Map. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Map. And if today's episode brought a little inspiration to your travels or just reminded you to slow down and savor the small things, I'd love for you to follow the show and leave a quick review. Until then, keep packing light, living deeply, and discovering the beauty that exists beyond the map.